Saying Commissioner District 1.
Mary Jo McGuire, Commissioner District 2.
Lena Moran, Commissioner District 4.
Lynn Becker, County Manager.
Nadir Abdi, Deputy County Manager, Health and Wellness Service Team.
Tim Stubblefield, Deputy Director, Corrections.
Gloria Reyes, Deputy County Manager for the Safety and Justice Service Team.
Political Bureau Planner and Corrections.
Alex, the Chief Financial Officer.
Justin Patterson, Assistant Superintendent of JDC.
Steve Morgan, Assistant Superintendent, Ramsey County Corrections.
Alex Cleveland, Officer Manager.
Ben Hammer, Policy and Planning.
Jim Bachelor, Superintendent at TCF.
Even Brewer, Deputy Director of Education.
David Gaines, your partner.
Valeria DeRusha, Community Corrections. Serena Paglovna, Guest. Mallory Potter, Planning Evaluation Analyst and Correct. Amy Mosswood, Government Relations. Dan Master, Innovation and Strategy and Health and Wellness. Monica Long, Director of Community Corrections.
Elijah Norris Holiday, Planning Manager, Office of Justice.
Christy Cobbs, Planning Specialist, Workforce Solutions. Pillsbury, Planning and Evaluation Analyst for the Corrections.
Perfect, thank you. So today's afternoon workshop highlights Ramsey County's effort to transform how the county supports justice-involved youth and their families. We'll hear about 2 state-funded initiatives, healing and treatment homes, and violence prevention programs and services. These efforts are grounded in community partnership, culturally responsive care, and long-term system change. Together, they aim to reduce youth confinement, increase safety, and strengthen family and community well-being. Thank you for to our presenters and partners for leading this important work. With that, I'll turn it over to them to get started.
Great, thank you, Chair, Commissioners, County Manager Becker. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to be here and present this very important project to you all. We are transitioning into the second part of today's workshop. You know, earlier this morning, we talked about the youth justice transformation work. Now we are excited to focus on this afternoon session on how we are actively restoring futures for justice-involved youth and their families through the development of healing and treatment homes and the expansion of our violent prevention services. This initiative represents a critical piece of our broader transformation, investing in healing-centered, community-based supports that reflect our commitment to safety, accountability, and opportunity for all. See, this always happens on the first slide. Do you have the, use your clicker? Okay, oh,
Okay,
okay, is that you or me?
that's me.
Okay.
I'm doing it.
All right, so,
Okay.
okay. So our agenda will start with, talking about our, healing and treatment homes grant, our violence prevention programs and services grant, and I will hand it over to Deputy County Manager. I'll be here shortly for the Health and Wellness Service Team. Kim Stubblefield will present the majority of our presentation today. And then Alex Kitza, our Chief Financial Officer, will come up and talk about sustainability of the project.
That's me, right?
Yep, that's you.
All right, thank you, Gloria. Good afternoon, everyone. This may be dangerous having the clicker next to me. But it's great to be here with you all again this afternoon. Before I begin, I just would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that the initiation of this project has encountered some unforeseen delays. And we really appreciate your understanding of the time and the constraints and the urgency involved. As this groundbreaking initiative for our team, we're fully dedicated to ensuring that we take the appropriate steps moving forward. We deeply value the importance of establishing the right partnership to achieve our mutual goal. And currently we are in the process of negotiating contracts, and we're optimistic about finalizing one vendor soon. Your continued patience and understanding is greatly appreciated as we work through this process, as we know how difficult it is when you're trying to get something going and you kind of have some unforeseen things that are there. But we're very intentional about, you know, our partnership and the conversations and what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you for the patience. So today we're providing a comprehensive overview of 2 transformational initiatives. the healing and treatment homes, and the violence prevention grants. These efforts represent Ramsey County's commitment to community-driven solutions that prioritize youth's well-being, safety, and equity. These initiatives stem from the recent state legislations and align closely with Ramsey County's strategic priorities, including equity, justice system transformation, and holistic support for youth and families. In the course of this presentation, we'll highlight the purpose of the investment, the $4.38 million for the healing and treatment homes, and the $4.4 million for the violence prevention, detailing how these funds are used through the timeline through mid-2027. Importantly, these efforts are supported by a collaborative ecosystem that brings together our county departments, community organization, state partners, to ensure integrity and effective service delivery. To sustain these programs long-term, we're building a community of practice for ongoing coordination and acknowledged sharing. Therefore, we're committed to strong performance measurements and evaluation, tracking progress and outcomes. We look forward to our questions and feedback to help us kind of guide us through the next step. This is sorry. Yeah, it's not working.
Clicker broke.
Okay,
So do you want?
yeah, that's slide 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one, I think. All right, so these initiatives strongly support Ramsey County's core commitment. The resident first, racial equity and health and equity, justice system transformation, holistic support. Those are the values that are the core components. So residents first, we prioritize making service accessible and effective and responsive to communities. And the racial equity, like a key focus is addressing systematic disparities that impact justice, involve youth and families. Justice system transformation, our approach centers on community well-being and redefines public safety beyond traditional enforcement. The holistic approach, we aim to strengthen the youth families by coordinating care across multiple system and partners. This alignment will ensure that our work is not only impactful, but also reflects the county's values and long-term vision. We're not just reforming, we're redefining youth justice in Ramsey County because the most significant risk we face is inaction and the continued harm it causes to our youth, families, and communities. The next 2 slides, I'd like to introduce Kim Stubblefield, Deputy Director of Community Corrections. She will take over most of these next slides. And then we'll have our Chief Financial Officer, Alex Coots, who will be providing an overview of the Healing and Treatment Homes Initiative along the Violence Prevention Program and Service Grants.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners and County Manager. I will start out with just giving us a bit of a background. And this is a review for a lot of us, right? So we know that our African American, Native American, Hispanic, and Asian communities in Ramsey County experience disproportionate impacts by the justice system. We know that predominantly Black youth and Indigenous youth are most disproportionately affected. And so it's important to name these groups specifically because when we use broad terms, it can kind of obscure the distinct and severe disparities that they experience. And so recognizing this, there is strong and unified support from the state, county, and community to invest in violence prevention programs and services that are tailored for justice-involved youth. And Ramsey County has successfully secured $10 million in direct appropriations through the 2023 Public Safety Omnibus Bill. And we have taken steps forward on 2 key initiatives. So this work is being led collaboratively by the Health and Wellness Service Team, Safety and Justice, Social Services, Corrections, And it's important also to acknowledge the critical role that our partners at the county attorney's office has played and also the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. It's through their leadership that we were able to secure this funding for these initiatives. One last thing I'll just share is that I think that these efforts truly reflect one Ramsey County toward advancing equity, healing, and public safety. And these efforts are designed to address disparities and promote safer and healthier communities. And so the two key initiatives that we're here to talk to you about today is the youth treatment homes and the violence prevention supports. So the 2023 legislature passed Chapter 123, which allocated significant funding to support justice-involved youth through these two key initiatives. The youth treatment homes received $5 million to establish culturally responsive, trauma-informed homes that are safe and community-based. These homes provide court-ordered therapy and healing support for young people and their families, where families and communities were engaged to help develop the programming. This funding is available through June 30th of 2027. The Violence Prevention and Family Support Program also received $5 million to support local providers in providing programming and services to justice-involved youth and their families. And it focuses on helping families when youth are placed out of the home or providing care when youth are incarcerated, increasing opportunities and job pathways for justice-involved youth. And again, this funding is also available through June 30th of 2027. Together, these initiatives represent a comprehensive approach to support youth healing and to prevent future justice involvement.
Go ahead, Commissioner McMurtry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the youth treatment homes, how many homes will there be and how many residents will be served?
Sure. We are still working on the logistics of how many homes, and that's moving through the contracting process.
The RFP going out for that.
It's already been
Yeah.
out.
We're in the contracting
We're
phase.
negotiating,
We're
yeah.
negotiating with two vendors.
So
And in a few slides, we'll sort of show you the timeline, where we came from and where we are today.
So we're contracting with community. We're not going and building homes for this. This is a community programs that we're having bid or, or
That do the
Wow.
work,
Yeah.
that do the work.
or can do the work.
Can do the work.
Yes.
Do you have anything, Commissioner?
So to confirm, are we contracting with two?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask, because I remember when this was brought to community, and was shared the first time, I think, and then when it was brought back, or when I asked for an update on it, is it just a focus on the African-American community right now for this first phase, or is it for all?
It is for all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. More questions? We're good? We're good? All right.
Madam Chair. Just to follow up, how many beds total then? If there are
Mm-hmm.
two contracts, how many beds?
You mean like bedrooms?
Yeah,
We're hoping to have 5-bedroom homes if the vendors could find something of that nature. For each of the homes, so about 5 bedrooms.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're still
Yeah.
in that process of identifying, the capacity and the homes, the actual infrastructure of the homes. I think it would be around 5 or 6 beds.
Commissioner McMurtry and then Commissioner McGuire.
So for the violence prevention section, you mentioned support for local groups. What exactly does that look like? Is there other grants that are going to be implemented? Is there a process that we've generated to locate the groups that we want to be in partnership with? Kind of explain more of what that looks like.
So we will lay that out in future slides.
Okay.
We will
Okay.
talk in more detail about what that looks like.
And just, if there's 5 beds in each of these homes, that's $5 million per $1 million per bed, or 10 beds, maybe $500,000 per
I
bed.
guess we should say bedrooms.
Yeah, bedrooms, because there may be more than, that's what you did say bedroom.
Yes.
So there's more than one person maybe in the bedrooms, but these are also
Exactly, yeah.
programming and everything that goes along. You're gonna get into all
Yeah.
of that.
Exactly.
I just didn't want the record to reflect
Yeah.
that this was gonna be just like a housing option, but there's a lot of other things that are gonna go into.
Yeah, we don't know, like, we don't know the size of the
Yeah,
bedrooms,
yeah,
we don't know the
yeah.
logistics
still
yet.
under contract.
Yeah,
Exactly.
thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ortega?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What's the community and notification, input, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
There was, there was significant community, engagement and input, at the beginning, way at the beginning of this process. About sort of what the community wants, what they're looking for, right? Culturally specific, homes was on the
Well,
top.
I'm
Is that what
not
you're
talking
referring to?
about, for example, the Hispanic community. I'm talking about the geographic community.
Like where they're located
Oh, where they're located, yeah.
and
And that still has not been determined.
finalized? Okay,
Okay, but,
That will come though.
and that's the question I'm asking.
That will come, yeah. That will come and, there'll be a process and plan for that. And once we identify the neighborhood, the location, and zoning, all that.
So the contracting is gonna be contingent on the location.
Hmm,
I
Not
mean, you're
necess- oh,
contracting with community agencies, right?
Correct.
So that community agency is then gonna be picking who picks the location and site?
the community agency.
And what process are they gonna go through?
so there's a timeline, and I think it kind of that goes up, so let's circle back to that question. Commissioner Moran, quickly, then we'll move on.
So for clarity, the hope is to get 2 treatment homes.
Mhm.
I hear maybe 1 female, 1 male. Is that, you can answer, is that true or not? And so what I'm hearing is that that process has not, the RFP has not happened?
No,
one
I'm
has
sorry.
been selected.
We
You're
have,
still in the process
we have-
of putting all that together.
yeah.
And
thank
this
you,
money has
Commissioner.
to be spent by when?
So thank you for that question, Commissioner Moran, because that is a question that everybody asks, but we are in contracting, negotiations with 2 organizations.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that it'll just be 2 homes.
Mhm.
That will be determined during the negotiations and the contract process.
Okay.
We have to spend these funds by, 2027. The end of 2027?
June
June
3rd.
June
So-
30th, 2027.
Can I just follow up quickly on that? Do they have to be spent like no more or do they just have to be spoken for like the ARPA dollars? They have to be spent. Okay,
Yep, they have to be spent.
okay, thank you.
Mhm,
We can move on. No further questions. Let's move on.
mhm.
Okay.
So our goal is to empower youth and families by embracing a holistic approach that fosters healing, stability, and offers opportunity. And this visual represents the collaborative ecosystem, the cross-departmental ecosystem where multiple partners have come together to expand access to behavioral health services, support successful reintegration, promote youth empowerment, and build long-term sustainable programs and services for justice-involved youth and their families. Through shared leadership, aligned priorities, and a deep commitment to collaboration, Ramsey County is advancing community-centered solutions that address the root causes that bring young people into our justice system. This
Madam
also,
Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner
yeah,
Brown.
Deputy Director for the Violence Prevention and Family Support Fund. Has that program been created or is that folding into some of our current programs that we have and it's being used?
yeah, so I think there's gonna be multiple strategies that we'll cover in a future slide, and we'll
Okay.
break all of that down.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
no worries, no worries, these are good
Yeah.
questions.
Like, okay.
Yeah. So this is also another visual, just to have you focus a little bit on the large
Mhm.
collaborative efforts that are happening. 11 county departments, over 58 staff, 2 state departments and counting, right? As we continue to move forward in this work.
Is that a barrier?
Commissioner
or-
McMurtry? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Moran, and then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a lot of departments, but that can be a barrier too, with trying to interact with so many in this process. So is it a barrier or is it a necessity for all the front end pieces to be in place?
I think we
Because this-
believe that it's absolutely necessary, right, to, again, we are thinking about our goal of One Ramsey County to address the needs of young people. And so it requires this level of collaboration and more. I think there will be, many more people involved as we get closer to, meeting our goal, for both of these
And
initiatives.
what is the goal? What is the goal?
Yeah, so the goal is to have homes that are open and operational by January of 2026.
Okay.
And to also have programming and services that wrap around that home to meet the needs of young people. And again, we will lay that out as we
Yes.
continue the presentation.
Commissioner McMurtry?
And this goes back to the ecosystem piece, and you may have, it may automatically be assumed since we're speaking to youth treatment homes, but I didn't see housing stability as one of the partners. Is that a partner that is automatically involved in this process, or is that a potential new partner that we include in this ecosystem?
I believe that it'll be a critical partner as our young people age out and move through, right? And ensuring the transition from a healing and treatment home to a stable environment, stable housing. And so that's where housing stability is gonna be a clear partner for us.
And so are they already involved, or?
They are not involved.
Okay, so that'll be a future
Yes.
partner brought into
Yeah.
this. Gotcha.
Awesome.
Thank you. So the purpose of this initiative, the treatment homes, is to establish safe, stable, and healing-centered homes that deliver culturally responsive care to justice-involved youth. There's been a total investment of 4.38 million awarded to 2 qualified providers who are deeply committed to equity and community well-being. The funds are being used to develop homes that are centered around healing and cultural connection and long-term supports. And at the community level, these homes will contribute to safer and more resilient neighborhoods by reducing youth incarceration and fostering healing through culturally grounded and family-centered care. This is the timeline that I spoke about a couple minutes ago, which sort of lays out where we started with this initiative. From January to March, we onboarded a new planning team that worked through solicitation and the evaluation process. From April to June, the vendor selection process began and procurement began their processes. Currently, we are in contract negotiations and doing planning for the homes, including the things we've talked about around the number of home, the site of the home. And then from October to December, we will be working on finalizing licensing and sort of the home requirements, ensuring that we have safe homes that comply with licensing, with the goal of having operational homes by January of 2026.
Go ahead, Commissioner McMurtry, and then Jebin Singh, and then Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When it comes to the investment and looking at the service providers, I know you mentioned, finding the 2 qualified service providers, but when we're looking at those providers, are we not only looking at the qualifications, but if they also have a history of doing this work well? I think that's the one piece I want to kind of really look into as we, think about contracting with other providers of how can we ensure that they're not only checking the box of, what qualifies them, but that they have a history of doing this work and doing it effectively.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners, for your good questions so far. I think one thing I'm sensing, and I'll get to your question in a minute, is just this is a really complicated project. It is complex. That's why all the people are needed. Different people bring different layers of expertise. This is something that is a situation that across the metro, as I go talk to other county administrators, every county is trying to solve this issue. And we are having to understand our own our own risk, as well as the risk for the vendor as they do this work, as well as capacity, both our own capacity to sort of show up in the best way to support the work, as also their capacity to be able to do this work. So getting to the capacity issue, it was important to us to have some technical expertise or some people who've had some history. I know Kimberly will probably talk about a communities of practice. However, there's not a lot of vendors that are already doing this work, so we have to do a both and. While going through a fair and process for procurement, it was important for us to be open and competitive in terms of the people that bring to the table. We certainly do see value both in experience and in a willingness to do a good job. And so I think both of those can be true at the same time. So while not, obviously we have to be a little cautious about what we're sharing as we're still in negotiations and have not finalized those contracts. I do just want to continue to stress, like, we've had teams working really hard on this. I've been very transparent that it's been hard to sometimes work on large projects that balance so many. I mean, I think Commissioner Moran's onto something like that whole big picture does show complexity and it shows difficulty, but it doesn't mean that we can't do hard things either. So I think it's a both and. While your initial look of that is correct, that is a very hard project to do. Now we can get better and we can coordinate. And I think having our new two DCMs here, since I came aboard, I spent a lot of time on this project with then Deputy County Manager Alex Kutza too. And so this is just one of the hardest things we've done. I'll just be real honest with you. And so we're not going to have all the answers today, but we wanted to be really transparent about the work today. We're grateful for the legislature to give us a little bit of an extension. And as we get to the sustainability plan, same concerns that you might have too is, if we get a late start, how do we keep it going? And we have some answers to that, but first we have to get them going, and we have to get them going without, while minimizing some risk to the county and risk to the community partner, and that has to be done very delicately. So,
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
To kind of piggyback off of my question around, these particular service providers, is there, as we try to figure out ways to kind of mitigate the risk as we're getting things up and running, is there a process, as a part of the process, is there a way for us to like check in with the service providers to make sure that they are meeting the needs that we have and that the youth who are going to be a part of these programs are getting what they need? Is there something in place to make sure we're doing those check-ins?
Yeah, I think that's what we try to do with all our vendors in general. That's a best practice regardless. In this case, it's even more important. I will say when we had the first kickoff with the two vendors, I made an effort to be there. John Choi made an effort to be there. I mean, our goal is really to support the vendor. And I think we have to figure out, as we do these complicated projects, we have to sort of balance, we had our audit committee not long ago. We talked a little bit about risk aversion versus risk appetite. Every day we're making some decisions based on that continuum when it comes to some of these complex projects. Risk can come in a lot of different ways. It can come to a risk in terms of financial risk to the county. It could come into our harm with the kids. It could come with us delivering on the project. So we have to kind of weigh all of those things at the same time, but it is important that we do this in partnership with those vendors as much as possible, while also making sure that, we're doing good by the public dollar, if that makes sense. So it's trying to be nimble and flexible and adaptable while doing something that really hasn't been done before much at all in the metro area, and other people are watching, but rushing to do it poorly is not going to serve us well either. So it's just a little bit of a tug and pull of that tension.
Commissioner Jevonsing?
Yeah, I think you guys are getting to the heart of my question, which was there's a couple of different strains of process, I think, that are worth unbraiding. And as far as when we're articulating to our partners in community, when we're and to our partners at the legislature, which is there is the sense of community and co-creation processes in envisioning what the needs are for Ramsey County and in a home such as this. And then the coordination of, once we've decided what that vision is, how do you do it responsibly, right? And both of those are complicated and take time. With the tension of, kids need this yesterday, right? And so I think transparency and respect for people to be able to hold multiple things in their head at all times, and being forthright in that narrative only helps us. because these are complex things. And and I think that's okay. I mean, I think I appreciate, the vulnerability in the information that you're sharing and how you're sharing it. Because these are hard things to do. So that was that was the question I had, which is how to that risk tolerance. And risk tolerance to the financial risk, the liabilities, the idea of making sure that anybody in our care and custody is
Mhm.
getting the services that they need and the care that they need, but also the opportunity cost of kids who are going without services that have been identified as needing to be, along with future resource opportunities if we're gifted this and we don't, and we don't use it well, right? So there's a lot going on in this, right? That also reflects other projects that we're working on, because it demonstrates our muscle and our ability to do hard things, so. Yeah, we're asking a lot of questions because this is really big.
Yes, no, we appreciate that, and I know it's difficult, but at the same time, as Commissioner, County Manager Becker said that rushing to do this quickly and having a poor outcome is not what we want. So we want to do this the right way, have deep conversations with the partners that we choose and really figure out if this is going to be, not only can get it off the ground, but can be sustainable and can be there after the math.
Commissioner Ortega?
Yeah, my question is finalizing licensing and home requirements. Tell me what that is.
DHS.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like DHS licensing requirements, that's the primarily for like group homes and treatment homes, right?
Okay, that's what I thought it was. I
Yeah.
wanted to make clarification. That's why I was asking. I'm tying it into my previous
Yeah.
thing, okay? These are very difficult projects, totally agree.
Mm.
The two big barriers in my estimation
Neighborhoods.
is what you brought up in terms of capacity,
Mhm.
and you did too. I mean, we gotta make sure there's capacity. It's not just enough to say we're partnering with an agency because they're maybe culturally have expertise, but they also need the other part, the clinical expertise, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's one issue. The other is, the reason why I brought up the issue of community is because now you're gonna have to go through a city process. You gotta go through the planning commission and then to the city council. And without good community process, you're gonna be delayed more than you think.
So I would love to speak to that, Madam Chair. So this is where we pull in this is almost like a little all hands on deck effort, right? We're pulling in the smartest people we have in the county on these issues, right? So I've already directed the team. They've already had several conversations with Director Josh Olson. Like, we have a different department that understands zoning differently, right? And understands city processes. We don't need our social service or our corrections department to learn zoning, you know what I mean? So this is where, like, I get the complexity, but we have expertise in the
Yeah,
house.
but our expertise is about explaining the rules. And
I
I'm talking
appreciate
about
that,
the
yeah.
politics
No,
of
I
it,
agree, yeah.
which are two different
Yeah,
things.
that's very true.
So when that planning commission member representing the east side, where most of the group homes end up in,
Yeah.
starts saying, and representing their community, there, that's, I just wanna get
I'm with
ahead
you.
of the curve so we could make this happen.
Yeah, we totally, thank you, Commissioner Ortega, because those are valid, concerns that we will be dealing with as we move through this process, and we need to, prepare our organizations, right? I really like the way County Manager Becker explains it to us. It's really a community of practice, right? It's not like we're gonna throw them out there, right? There is an opportunity for us to move into this process together. And it's not always gonna look good. It's gonna be really hard. But we can do the hard things, right? For our young people who really need these spaces, and we hope that our community.
And that's all good, Gloria.
Yes,
I just wanna make sure we have a good community
Yeah,
process.
Yes, I hear you.
Because at the end of the day, it's about
The zoning.
informing that community and they understanding
Exactly.
what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
No,
That's
And that's-
all I'm
Yeah.
trying.
No, we totally understand that. That's important. because that could delay us even more, so.
I guess I just have a couple things to mention, to say. I think this is, I'm kind of struggling to understand how it got to this and these healing homes. I mean, I think of like foster homes, like why did we not consider that option, or group homes, and, or kind of like, it almost feels like we're starting from scratch or starting from zero, and that's exactly what we're doing. And like, at what, I mean, you said that there was a robust community engagement process. I'm curious to know when and who was engaged, and it wasn't intentional about that engagement, because prior to my role here, I worked in the Native community with the high, so, and didn't hear much about this until it was brought to us as, hey, this is what we're gonna do. So I'm to the point that Commissioner Ortega said, right, like, we're not being intentional and being collaborative, even with our city partners on this. Were we intentional and collaborative with our community partners on this? Because I've also asked a few community organizations that do kind of similar work, and they're like, yeah, we didn't know nothing about it till it was shown. And we are not applying, which was really disappointing, because they would have been a great organization to apply for this. So I guess I'm just kind of, and I know that there's a lot of people, I mean, to Commissioner Moran's part, like, too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Like, to get the work done, but I do know that this is hard work and needed, but I guess it's just, why didn't we consider maybe investing in foster families or going that route? Because they still would be in the care of somebody and still could be court ordered there, and that happens often. So, that's just something to maybe follow up with, so we don't gotta take up time now,
Yeah.
'cause I'm gonna
No,
be
thanks for that question.
be a stick person on time here.
Yep,
So,
we will follow up on that.
So let me just say that this was a well thought out process
Okay.
about having healing and therapeutic homes in the community. Versus sending our youth to Red Wing or other places like that. And it is new. We're leading what Minnesota leads around the country all the time.
Right.
Right, and so it was a legislative process. We had to go to the legislature, we had to testify, we brought in community, we brought in people to testify, we talked to our legislative partners to get these dollars. But because it is a really, there's a lot of moving parts, it takes time, right? It takes time because, government is slow, we're slow.
Yeah.
Right, and we just last session went to legislature to get an extension
Mhm.
because the time was running out to get these dollars out. But, and I can't quite remember, and I have to go back to some notes to see why we wanted to have a therapeutic treatment homes. Because one of,
Dr. Long might be able to answer that. Do you remember the background of that?
Can you, I'm sorry.
Why we went with therapeutic treatment homes?
Okay, so when this endeavor began, thank you for tapping me in, because I was like, oh, I got some answers back here. This initiative came from a collaborative relationship between Sheriff Fletcher and County Attorney Troy's office. The way that the request was written to the legislator, that was what was laid out. So when we received the funding in the county, that's the dictation of where we got to sit those funds. So it wasn't like it was Safety and Justice's choice or Health and Wellness, it just was how the money came. So community engagement was done at the forefront of this process. Juanita's table did all the community engagement. And Elijah and I agree to disagree. He says about 6 months. I say it was probably more of a year of community engagement across Ramsey County. When community corrections came involved was approximately 10 months ago, and we were getting ready to go through the RFP process. And that's when, after the community engagement that built the RFP, that came from the community. Then we were brought into the process along with Gloria, myself, and my wonderful staff, who without hesitation took this on, and we're running with it. So that's kind of the history of how the RFP was written to where we are today.
Perfect, thank
let
you.
me give you a little bit more background about why this was so powerful. It's because this came about really with a community member whose wife was carjacked by some young people. Right? And she had a baby in the vehicle, and they carjacked her. And the husband, in partnership with his wife, came forward and say, what's going on here? You know, even though they was traumatized, they realized the trauma that was happening to young people too, and said, we gotta do something different here. We gotta do something more here. It was a bipartisan bill supported by Republicans and Democrats, by a community member who was directly impacted by crime, who was leading the process, to testify on it, to really state that, you know, we got to do something here. It's not just about incarcerating our young people. There's trauma, there's lots of other things happening in their lives. And how can we do something that's different that has not been done? But we know, as we talked about some of the, in the earlier workshop, about the root causes of what we're seeing in crime. It's what we were seeing in crime. And so it's a new therapeutic type of support system. You know, it is supported by believing that we cannot do anything without engaging community in the process, where kids are at, where they're living, to be a part of the process. DHS, when you look at what that looks like for licensing, is always led by DHS. They are the experts there. Our job that I see, that I'm writing down right now, is that with a few things we got to do, because it does have to go in front of the zoning commission. It will have to go in front of the city council, but they're our friends. And so we got to get in front of that and be having these conversations with them. Because we have a goal set. That's right. We have a goal set. So once we find out the neighborhoods, we might have to do some community meetings, right? Let people know this is safe, you know, and all the things that community can and will be concerned about. But and we might have to go to legislature too and ask for an extension. Just in case.
I know you want to move on, Madam Chair, but I think what you're calling out is absolutely things that we've been thinking about. And I think that's exactly why it's hard, because we don't normally work with vendors where we want to buy something and then you go do it. Like now this is like, you're gonna do a project and we're gonna have to, as a county, come in and sort of help you while you're doing it. And so it is very atypical, and we have to just set up that relationship so that both sides understands their roles and responsibilities and have an open relationship to be able to do that. If that makes sense. Like we normally, you know, like the agreement is you're gonna get a home, the RFP is like, you're gonna get a home and you're gonna do the project, but really we're gonna be in partnership with them because we know a lot more about the challenges, right? So.
And I would say they probably won't get a home. They probably have a home, because you have to, I don't know.
Yeah, we can't talk about that.
Yeah, okay, can't talk about the details.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, so want to talk a little bit about the goals and some of the gaps that have been identified that we are addressing. So this portion of the presentation sort of outlines the purpose and significance of these healing and treatment homes, a lot of the things that we've just talked about. And this initiative represents a major shift in how we support our youth in Ramsey County. So first, our goals. We want to provide safe, stable, healing-centered homes as an alternative to detention and also out-of-home placement. These are not meant to be institutional settings, but like we said, these are homes where youth will receive programming and services that are necessary for healthy development. These homes will be staffed. They will deliver trauma-informed and culturally responsive care. So again, we are able to reduce our reliance on detention and other out-of-home placements. One critical element is that we engage families and communities into the rehabilitation process for young people, recognizing that real change happens beyond system involvement, right? And this initiative supports our broader justice system transformation, where we really want to move away from punitive models and toward more community-based restorative approaches for young people. So in addition to that, obviously one of the goals is to build a scalable and sustainable model with the potential to draw down on some long-term funding and through like state licensing and possibly Title E reimbursement. And so those are some of the goals that we have identified. Some of the gaps that have been identified and some things that we're trying to do to address those gaps historically. We know that there's been a lack of culturally appropriate residential options for young people, especially youth who are Black and Indigenous. And too often, young people have been placed in detention centers or even in hospital settings, not necessarily because it's the best place, but because there is this lack of alternatives. There is this gap in our current alternatives. So We know that services across the justice system, the health system, family systems have been very siloed. And we are trying to create a more coordinated model that connects systems that better serve young people. We know.
Commissioner, you,
Yeah, well, one of the questions that I have is, acknowledging that some of these projects that we're trying to do are, maybe a part of a regional approach to the idea. Hopefully this isn't the one all that's going to serve everything, but while it's the first, I guess I am a little nervous about it end up by default, like the JDC becomes a default, like hospitals become a default, but this would become a default as well, and just kind of getting ahead of that, recognizing that, right? And so, the idea of, we know that, there are a number of folks who, over time, who stay in the JDC because there isn't a better place for them to go. Some of them may be because a more therapeutic environment is better, or the other ones may be that they actually, it's the environment that needs to be stabilized, not the child. And so figuring out, do we have a specific population that we hope to serve in these homes so that it's not just kind of an in-between catch-all?
I mean, these are young people who are adjudicated, right? So that's the specific.
Okay, that's helpful.
I mean, I think that's important to know. I mean, I think when we talk about group homes and other, it's a different, and most of the time it's young people who are child protection services. And others, this is specifically for young people.
Thank you for that. We've been
Yeah.
talking a lot about prevention, and then, so it's hard to know in the continuum, it's been a day. So
Yeah.
I appreciate
Yes.
for reminding us where we're at.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the other, I think, gaps that we know youth face is sort of this barrier to reintegration. We know that there's little support once young people leave confinement. And this model helps families prepare, it engages families in the healing process from the beginning. And then finally, most current responses are pretty short term and they tend to be crisis driven. And so this model is really about building lasting change with long-term therapeutic supports. So this isn't just about a new program, but it really is a new approach. And one that centers young people's dignity, family engagement, and community well-being. And I just want to mention your support in helping us bring this vision to life is really important. Again, earlier, a lot of people talked about all the work that went into just getting us here today to have this presentation. And so we appreciate the support of our board. I want to turn it over.
quickly, Commissioner McMurtry.
One quick question on the final goal within regards to the long-term funding potential, knowing that of the limitations that we may have from the state and the federal government. What are some of the scalable, sustainable funding models that you all are thinking through? Is it philanthropic dollars? Like what would that look like if we have these challenges from federal and state?
Long-term sustainability. It's the fund officer.
Yeah. No more pictures. I don't, if it's okay, I'll just stand. I've been here all day in that seat. Thanks for the question, Commissioner. Madam Chair, as I said, I'm Alex Kutz. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. I have one slide, so I'll try and be efficient. So we have a work group that's been exploring different strategies of how to secure long-term funding, because as you noticed, this was a legislative grant of $5 million for each program over a period of time. But it's clearly serving some youth that there's a continuum of care, right? There's places for these youth at different spots, and this is a space where there's gaps, which Deputy Director Stowefield was laying out. So what do we think about? The first thing we thought about was licensing and state funding. How are these kids treated, right? There's 4E funding. That's the main source of funding for this type of home, although it's a little out of the norm, but I've been working with Alex Cleveland and others at how we explored that. So once it's licensed, we'll look at that. That does not cover all costs. That's just a percentage of costs. So then we're also looking at some of these kids today are in hospitals and other locations where our social services department actually pays for them. So, and they're not the most appropriate level of care. So we shift funding from maybe an emergency room or somewhere else to a more appropriate place in one of these homes. And we use our funds. Those funds are already being spent, spend them in a more appropriate place. I know it was mentioned earlier about a regional approach from Commissioner Jevons saying there are regional partners that have placement challenges. We've been contacted by a couple of them, partnering with them and saying, okay, hey, let's see how we make an arrangement so you pay for these beds as we go forward, because they're also paying for placements in places that probably aren't as appropriate for their kids. And then new opportunities, right? We're always looking for grants, other non-traditional funding sources. And I think the last one is really important. We need to sit down with the state because this is a new level of care and they did give us a grant. And then you sit down with the folks at the state and say, how do we work to get enhanced per diem rates, to explore other funding options, even new legislation to support these kids, assuming it's like a sustainable model that works, right? So it's new, it's a needed service, and working with all these different folks, I think we'll get there. We're definitely spending money on some of these youth in different spaces, so having this level of care and testing it out here to see how we could expand and work with the state to make sure it's part of their continuum and paid for appropriately would be great.
Commissioner Zhang and then Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that we're still in like contract negotiations about the whole, the homes themselves too. What were some of our requirements about long-term partnership of those facilities?
Good question.
I don't know that I'm the right person to, we can get you the RFP. Are you asking from a like financial sustainability perspective? Are you
Not the
asking?
ongoing operations. This is basically what the legislature, what they gave us was that we have until 2027 to use it to build the youth treatment homes, right? But how long is that contract that we have with them for, right?
Oh.
About like ongoing too, because like, what if at the end of the day, like they build it, but then they don't partner with us later on?
Right.
I mean, so there is this thing called public purpose, right? Language that we use in any sort of contract, negotiations. And so that could be part of the sustainability in the partnership. So that way it can continue as long as it's public purpose for 10 years, for example.
I kind of think of what you're saying is what we did, the one for interfaith action, their commitment when we with the hotel. So I think maybe that's something to consider as you're doing contract negotiations, that we would like to see some commitment beyond these investment dollars. So we're not just paying to build your house and then when our contract ends, you can decide, oh, I'm just gonna privatize and do something else, right? Like it's still the intent that was established and what it was for, right? Yeah. Commissioner Ortega?
Yeah, just in terms of long-term, so Alex, correct my assumptions. I see number one, the top and the bottom one, going into the future as paying 80% of the bill. I see the middle at best is paying 20%. That's the way historically, from my experience, I look at that. My question would be, and tell me if I'm way off. Would that be a fair parameters?
So generally, yes, I would say Title IV-E is not 80%. It's closer to like 40%, which is why we have the bottom one. We need to get to, yep, we need to get to the state and say, hey, this isn't covering the cost of this specific thing and we need.
And I know that the top one is not 80%, but between top and the bottom, we could get to maybe 70-80%. And that's where you gotta put in the work now.
Yes, I agree with you.
I mean, even once we get all the other pieces in places, we don't have those. We're not looking at sustainability unless we're gonna foot 100% of the bill. Which you're not gonna get there with your current diversion of funds from hospitals or other places. I'm just bringing that up, that's, well, this sounds like an answer. It isn't an answer until we get the last one fixed.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Commissioner Zhang and then Commissioner Moran.
Yeah, and this just brings up a really good question about like how much do we currently spend on services for youth who are in our detention right now
I don't have that number.
for operations and program.
Can I call up Alex Cleveland, cause
I can at least
We can
talk to
follow.
the amount of money that's been spent out of the county for these types of services and group homes or full residential facilities.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost 33 placements last year alone that went out of Ramsey County and Grand Rapids, Raynard, Bemidji, Austin, Duluth, Crookston, providing similar services, spending more than $1.5 million of Ramsey County funds to provide those services out of Ramsey County. So just from one point of view, just to have that in local, closer to family, better for families and children. Just that one point alone, as far as overall costs, you start adding psychiatric residential treatment centers, it's like $3.5 million. At least last year spent. Also, send information to Sophia Thompson and make sure Alex has it that you could look at, but ultimately. We're spending all of these resources to try to treat kids away from Ramsey County. To get the same services that the treatment homes will be able to offer.
So the
Thank you.
need is there, is what we hear. So looking at this through a race conscious lens, and looking at the diversion, looking at the partnering with other piece, because what I see, what I hear when we're spending probably Black boys out into rural Minnesota and they're getting our money, is that if we do the reverse of that and allow them to take our beds, that it may not look like what the population we're trying to serve that's been disproportionately impacted by the system. So I just say that to say that we need to be conscious of that and aware of that partnership and what that could mean for our local kids right here who need to have that type of support
At home,
at home,
yeah,
at home,
yeah.
yeah, and not out somewhere else.
All right, thank you. I'll be cautious of time, so if we want to move on to the next one, any last questions or comments really quick before we move on to Violence Prevention Services Grant? Okay,
All right, so just a bit of an overview. So the purpose of this grant is to fund violence prevention programs and services across 6 key areas that support young people and families. And the total investment, again, is $4.4 million, focused on delivering impactful and culturally responsive programs. The way that the funds are allocated is $2 million to complement healing and treatment homes, the care and rehabilitation that will happen at those homes. $825,000 to expand respite alternatives to detention center. $820,000 to innovate and expand access to safety and justice programs. $425,000 to support youth leadership, economic mobility, and overall well-being. $180,000 for youth empowerment and workforce development, and then $150,000 to strengthen youth and family-focused community supports. And at the community level, this funding is meant to strengthen safety and well-being by expanding, again, culturally responsive prevention and support services that address some of the root causes that we talked about already today.
Commissioner Jivensing?
This is a super quick question. Was this a legislated directive that this is like the percentage that these funds are used, or is that something we determined internally?
Yeah, we determined the specifics of allocation internally.
Yeah,
And
okay.
to follow up on that, have these dollars been spent or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner
And when you say
McGuire,
we, this was the sheriff and the county attorney that
Our
first
whole
did
work-
this, or no?
No, this is the whole entire.
Okay,
work.
this is everybody,
Yeah.
but this was, I feel like there was something initiated by those two that
They initiated the
they in-
initial legislation.
they
or-
initiated the initial legislation around it, and then we were brought in, sort of, they just thought that this was needed, which you don't disagree with that, okay.
Yeah.
That's a longer conversation, thank you.
Those settings, yeah.
So again, just quickly to review some of the goals, some of the gaps that have been identified and how we're addressing those. So first, we want to prevent youth from entering the justice system in the first place, right? So through proactive community-based programs that intervene earlier and meet young people where they are. We're looking to expand access to culturally responsive and prevention and support services that reflect the lived experiences of our young people and their families, and especially communities that have been historically marginalized. A key component is to promote youth leadership and economic opportunities, giving young people not just services, but actual pathways where they are able to thrive. And then we also seek to provide viable alternatives to detention, so that young people aren't placed in environments that may do them harm. At the core of this, we want to strengthen families and communities. We know when we look at the gaps, historically, we've seen limited public investment in upstream youth-centered violence prevention, and this is to help fill that gap. So when young people are in crisis, the default response again tends to be detention or hospitalization, and those are costly options. They tend to be reactive and not always appropriate. And so there has been a lack of coordinated prevention infrastructure where community-led solutions are adequately supported and resourced. And then the other thing that we had discussions about is that youth voice and leadership have often been missing from the table. And so there are a few intentional workforce development pathways for justice-involved youth. And then finally, access to services has been uneven, with disparities that mirror the broader inequities that we see in the larger community. And this program is a chance to do things different and smarter and earlier with our community. And I just want to speak to the leadership from you all as our board in helping us ensure that we stay on the right pathway with this work.
I have a quick question. So as you mentioned the use of funds and then the goals and the gaps to address these funds, are some of these dollars also going to be then used for internal programs that are maybe to build on programs that we may already have? Like one thing that comes to mind is like the sheriff's office and the work that they're doing with community and youth and how they typically have funding issues, right? So would this work fall under some of these categories as well? And would they have to go through looking at the timeline, an application process just like everybody else, or would they not? I mean, I guess I'm just curious of how does it work if we're building on something internally that we have, that the county already has in place, like whether it's through the workforce department, the sheriff's office, the county attorney's office, right? Or we're going out to community to engage with them, to have them to help uplift the work they're doing.
Yeah, great question. So some of these funds will be devoted to
Okay.
internal. We know we have a lot of great programs within corrections, social services, the attorney's office even, right? Restorative practices there and the sheriff's department. So thank you for that question. Some of these funds will go towards that, and there would be a process
Okay.
in getting those funds, yeah.
Commissioner Jevonsing?
Well, and again, just laying this out, I think these program, the gaps and the needs that are trying to be met by this, I think we've come from a spirit in the past, at least as a community advocate of meaning the gaps are so large that for sure we're not going, we're just gonna say yes, yes, and yes, and yes, and. But as a one Ramsey County and as good stewards of our services, and as a way of not having 5 different groups doing similar kinds of things and how to, unless that's the strategic goal. Meaning that we have to have many doors for many different, unless that's a conscious choice. So I guess that I think when I'm thinking about this, I think your question and your point you're bringing up is really key, which is if a good idea originates within a particular department, if a particular pilot comes out of something, but as it evolves to a scaled up program, where it then eventually gets housed and how it's nurtured and supported or how it's dispersed, again, as long as it's intentionally in a decision, not just because initially this is the thing that popped up, but like as we go through, where do we get that going, right? And keep it going. As we evolve these programs, that's really, yeah. And something I was kind of wondering about, because as we each are asking ourselves as an enterprise to stay focused on what is our lane, there are times when we have to think globally, but then there are also times where you say, why is this located here? It's a beautiful flower, but it's supposed to be in this flower bed over here, not over there, right? So sorry, that was a long-winded way. I'm just
No.
saying, she just made me think of something really bigger than this particular issue that is smart as we go into this budgeting process.
So here is the timeline for the violence prevention programs and services. So from July to March, we engaged with community, completed some planning so that we were able to clearly define a funding strategy. Between April and June, we established the community of practice that we briefly touched on earlier to kick off collaborative planning with our partners and to strengthen cross-agency efforts. In July, we actively implemented a new amendment, finalizing the solicitation processes and preparing to execute contracts. Our goal is to complete contracting and finalize all planning activities by the end of this year to set the stage for programming and delivery of services starting next year. Just to give some more details about the community of practice, this will serve as a natural venue for knowledge sharing, creating an intuitive and welcoming space where learning can happen among participants. We want to implement innovative strategies to share resources more effectively, ensure that the assets are being distributed and exchanged in ways that maximize their impact. This platform is meant to showcase new opportunities and updates and keep all of our partners informed and engaged. And a key focus will be bridging gaps by actively identifying and closing disparities in the different knowledge levels that different organizations and partners have about resources. And just to support ongoing connection and collaboration. We'll host these communities of practices quarterly and bring people together to do relationship building and just build on our work.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Zhang.
I'm sorry, I stepped out during the overview of the funds here on slide 15. For the use of the funds, is that dictated by statute, or is that just something that we determine based off on some of our programming levels and need?
Great question. Yes, Commissioner, that is something we've determined internally, based on just the needs of our young people and where to divert funds.
And then may I ask a little bit more about the respite and alternatives to detention services there? About the 825,000? Is that one is going to have its own separate RFP too, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and how do we know the number of beds then that we're asking for?
We do not know, and I may phone a friend here. But the idea is that this would be launched while we do the mobile ray risk assessment tool, right? Because one of the concerns from law enforcement and others is that there's nowhere to send young people.
Yep.
And so investing in alternative to detention ATDs, right, would go along with that. And so I'm not sure if Elijah, if you have,
Yeah, yeah, thank you for the question, Commissioner. We're hopeful to have 4 to 6 beds for the respite shelters. $825,000 is not a lot of money, but we are hopeful that it'll get enough to get us off the ground at least, to show proof of concept, and then hopefully we can figure out a way to add additional dollars to invest in alternatives to detention and respite shelters. But the plan is to identify a couple of vendors that provide 4 to 6 beds and those young people in need of emergency respite shelter services.
One of the thought that came to my mind too, when we had a conversation earlier about, our housing providers, is that I know that there are, shelters for our youth. I look at that daily number as well too, and it doesn't always get filled too. So I don't know if they would be right partners or if we've even engaged them in that conversation already too, just as a place of respite.
Great question. Well, Commissioner Mercury and then Commissioner Jevonsing.
Just to continue the conversation on the housing front, and I was thinking about, are there opportunities for us, for those who are maybe transitioning and are in need of help to find more stable housing, whether it's through some type of specific rental assistance that these funds would help go towards? I'm just trying to think of that what seems to be that gap of maybe those who are justice involved, who we're trying to find, certain resources so that they can kind of get on that better path to stability, and housing, I think, is going to be crucial to that, but just wondering if there are other resources that we could possibly leverage these funds for that could address some of those gaps.
Great, thank you, yeah.
Commissioner Jevon quickly, and then we're gonna move on, unless you have anything to add, Commissioner Moran?
No, the two questions that this actually links back to seeing these dispersions of funds and seeing how they're used. As it goes to my earlier question of making sure that when we're looking for safe spaces for youth, that we're still setting them up for success, and that it's a safe place for them and the people around them as well. And so I think that's really helpful. But, and then also I'll just throw into there, when we look at stabilization, I know we have, something right here is seeing like the idea of, some of that's housed within the workforce solutions because of the program, that's the promise.
Power within.
Power within us group. But, to that point of the housing stability and the next steps, along with work experiences. And I don't know how much, it's one of those things where I just said, how do we make sure that not everybody's doing everything, but at the same time, you have to do the work where the work's getting done. So I'm holding both those thoughts in my head at the same time. And I do appreciate, I'm understanding now the dispersion of funds in this way is trying to chip away at different parts of of the issue.
Commissioner Moran?
So, gosh, what I was gonna say. So I would think that the money that we have before us, the 10 million, is for the therapeutic homes. If you
It's
have
five.
not.
Five.
It's
This is
five.
the other
It's five for each.
I thought it was 5 for
Five.
services and five.
Yeah, this is the service.
Right, this is, right,
Yeah.
similar, yeah. So, but if you have not had the opportunity to go visit, one of these homes where our youth are staying who are on probation and see the type of services that they're providing for these young people within those homes, I think you should. This is more of an extensive type of programming with youth have been adjudicated, but there are homes right now that are doing like wonderful, wonderful job transforming our young boys and girls' lives, right? We just took it to a whole nother level here, in this process here. But you haven't, like there, you could go and there's lots of homes you can go visit and just have an opportunity to see how they do the work that they do there.
Thank you for that.
And the
That's great.
support that they have, the cultural pieces and parts of that work too.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, so we want to talk a little bit about performance and evaluation.
Okay.
And so, equity will be a central focus of our evaluation efforts for the healing and treatment homes and the related services. We want to ensure that the programs are truly benefiting our young people, especially our youth who are from marginalized communities. Our evaluation will look at access to services, the participation levels. It will identify barriers that may prevent young people and their families from engaging fully. And most importantly, we'll assess whether the programs are making their intended impact. Are they reducing incarceration, recidivism, and justice involvement? While also promoting healthy development for our kids and safer communities. So this is more than just checking a box. We are really committed to using our evaluation to improve program effectiveness, promote transparency and accountability, and just advance the county's strategic priority of centering community and well-being in our justice transformation. And also, we do have reporting requirements back to the Office of the Justice Programs to ensure we're in compliance and we're meeting state expectations. So, in summary, what makes this work unique? Again, 10 million in state funding that supports both the treatment homes and violence prevention efforts. The approach is equity driven and culturally responsive. We're using a phased rollout, working across departments with our community partners. The focus is on youth healing and family supports, and of course, community safety. And we're working to build long-term sustainability through licensing and ongoing partnerships. So this is bold. It is hard work. It's complex and complicated. It is also values driven, and we're excited to keep moving it forward. And I'll shift to our deputy county manager for closing remarks.
Thank you, Kim.
Let me just ask one clarify, because Commissioner Moran just said that this is happening all over, but now it just says we're one of a kind.
No, not
Oh,
this.
oh, the other ones,
Yeah.
the first 5 million, okay.
No, no. No. I think just regular probation homes, group homes are happening.
Oh,
And
right.
I think, thank you for clarifying that, because that's where I was a bit confused in the
Yeah.
beginning as well. So for you to say that, it kind of was like, oh, okay. So this level of what these therapeutic homes is like two steps,
It's like
is above,
that,
yeah.
Right, yes,
Yeah.
okay,
And
thank
then
you, I just
Commissioner
wanted to
John?
clarify in my head, thank you.
Yeah, before we, go into, this, final piece too is, you know, some of the questions or concerns that I've also gotten from my constituents. And not to say that they're always accurate or right, but they're also asking about why are we spending $5 million on youth treatment homes when we had a boys totem town?
Yeah.
Right, like
Oh,
that's like the
well.
narrative. What would you say are like, you know, clear examples of what distinguishes that from what we're trying to build?
Yeah, I was not around and I'm not aware of Boys Totem Town, but in my understanding, it was not a good environment for young people. I think
It was
the
jail.
therapeutic and treatment homes is really an opportunity for us to kind of do some wraparound supportive services for our young people so that they can transition to be successful. And the Boys Totem Town was just not a place for somebody. It was like a prison. Jail.
And it,
It was
and it
fun.
costs a lot, right, to run those large congregate.
And it
care
was,
facilities.
I think of it as really deceiving to the public, because it was in a really beautiful setting. So it
Right.
looked like a really great place to send kids. Like, oh gosh, it's gorgeous. But it wasn't, the things that were happening, you know, the programming wasn't there, the things wasn't there, and it was a lot of facility for a few people, but I don't wanna I don't wanna discount some of the good work that was done there.
Yeah.
But maybe someone else can talk even more.
I'm just gonna say,
Yeah.
Judge Clark and I would have lunch at Boys Hometown with the kids once a
Yeah.
year.
Mhm.
And I gotta tell you, it was an unpleasant place, environment, just even to eat lunch. So that's the bottom.
Try.
Commissioner, and then we're gonna transition to close us out.
Yeah, well, I'm just being somebody in community through some of these conversations. For me, it's the idea that, you know, the bulk of these kids, hopefully all of them, are going to go back to community or they're gonna go on to jail. So when we have this moment of intervention, we're making a choice as to what we're setting them up for. You know, are we setting them up to successfully thrive in community, or are we preparing them for prison? And I think that, I think the efforts that you guys are doing are really laudable to address, that we want to interrupt us systemically. There had been decisions made along the way that were ensuring one direction versus the other, and this is an attempt to stop that tide. So to the county managers, like, this is really complex work. It's not just trying to figure out how are we caring for these kids, or how are we gonna do a group home plus, how are we shifting against historical systemic tides, right?
Thank you.
Did you wanna add before you?
Just that I worked at Boys Totem Town. I was
Yeah.
there for many years. And the difference that I see in this is smaller home settings where kids can get the individualized care that they need, where families have much more engagement, where we have partnered closely with our community. And we hope that it's more cost effective. And again, this is an alternative to larger congregate care settings for our youth. And it is located in our local communities.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Kim, do you agree with what I said in terms of the environment?
So,
Oh, no, I think the kids and the staff were wonderful. I knew.
Yeah.
So a lot of the staff came from the west
yeah,
side. right?
so it was a very old building. It took a lot to keep up.
Yes.
We couldn't keep up with the maintenance, like a lot of problems, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're here today to say that we can do better.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about.
Well said.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Gloria, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This was a wonderful conversation. You know, this is not only innovative, but this is unprecedented. We are trying to do something that has not been done in the state of Florida and for our county, right? So we're doing something new. There's a lot of risk involved. And we're doing something that, fosters the youth, with, healing and in a place that, families can also be engaged in the transition that the kids are in. So we appreciate, your support. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate the questions because it gives us a different lens of what we need to think about as well. But as our county manager Becker said earlier, this is gonna be, there's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of uncertainties. There's a lot of nuances that we don't know of. So it's gonna take an all hands on deck, especially, when we're in the contracting phase, because usually when you contract with the vendor, they're kind of doing their own thing. This is the first time where we're contracting, then we're saying, we also got our arms around you to make sure that you're successful. So that's something new. So, Commissioner Ortega, we may have to tap you in if the homes are in your area. You may need to talk to some of those city folks to get the zoning and stuff. But yeah, it truly will be an all hands on
You
deck.
know, we've had the same issues with the homeless,
Yeah.
with every, you
Yeah.
name it, CD.
Yeah. But the purpose of this presentation was to be very transparent, to let you all know where we are. And what may be some of the struggles in front of us and how you all can guide us through this and help us get to a better place. So thank you.
And on top of that, because of the work that we're doing here, Hennepin County is trying to go after it so they can get one over there in Hennepin County. So we are gonna be leading here doing this work.
So what I hear is we gotta go faster.
All right, so thank you to everyone who presented today and to all of you behind the scenes working on the day-to-day work. I appreciate the way you laid out not just the purpose of these investments, but the people and the partnerships behind them. What we heard today makes it clear that Ramsey County is doing something different. These are not programs built in isolation either. They reflect collaboration across community corrections, social services, safety and justice, the county attorney and sheriff's office, and many others, all focused on one goal: supporting youth and families in a way that actually works. The healing and treatment homes and violence prevention services are big steps towards building a more connected and healing-centered approach to youth justice. They offer real alternatives and bring culturally grounded support where it is most needed. So this work is bold and it is not without challenges, but that what helps me, is the confident, what helps give me confidence is the shared commitment I see across our departments with our and our state partners. So thank you again to our staff and to my fellow commissioners for your continued support, and we are under time with 3 minutes, so we're adjourned.
Thank you.